My book, Materializing Magic Power, Chinese Popular Religion in Villages and Cities, published in 2015 by Harvard University Asia Center, and the Chinese version of it, entitled Lin Li Ju Xian, published in 2020, paint a broad picture of the dynamics of popular religion in Taiwan. I try to present a fresh perspective on the divine power of Chinese deities as revealed in two important material forms. That is God statues and spirit mediums. So this is the structure of the book. I divide my book into two halves. The first part is about villages, and then the second part is popular religion in cities. The first part of the book provides a detailed account of popular religion in villages. This is followed by a discussion of how rural migrant workers cope with challenges in urban environments by inviting branch statues of village deities, Fenling, to the city, establishing an urban shrine and selecting a new spirit medium. These practices show how traditional religion is being reconfigured in cities today. Since you are more interested in the urban part of my book, I will move to chapter 4 and 5 to discuss the reconfiguration of religious power there. But to properly understand what's happening in the cities, we still have to start from the villages. So this is the village this is the place where, it's called Wanyan, where I conducted my fieldwork in rural Taiwan. You can see fields of corns and sorghums surrounding this place. So it's a farming village. On the far left-hand side of the village, in the rear, here, we use the mouse here, stands the temple, which remains the tallest building in the village. So the villagers have a kind of a consensus that they shouldn't build their houses higher than the temples. They have to, obey the traditional rule. Let me take a closer look at the village. Wanyan village is located in southwestern Taiwan. It's a village with 70 households. It's a very small village. I've conducted fieldwork there and in the nearby region since 1995. It was chosen because religion there was very alive and active. I remember when I first went into the village following a procession for Goddess Mazu, 5 spirit mediums stood in line to welcome the goddess. And all of them were simultaneously in a state of possession. It was really very impressive. As you can see here, the village is protected by the deity spirit soldiers, Wu Ying Bing Jiang. The spirit soldiers' camps are located at the center and the 4 corners of the village. So you can see I use the red circle to mark them. So these are very obvious marks, in the village landscape. The houses in the village are built following feng shui concepts. As you can see from this figure, most of them face the river. So you see most of the houses here face the river, but some of them, face the east side because the river, the Qishui River, Qishui Xi, follows, flows from the east and south to the west. So most of the houses face south, but for some houses on the eastern side, they will turn to face the east. So we see the religious practices of this place deeply attracted me, very interesting. So they deeply attracted me to choose it as my fieldwork site. However, there's no proper irrigation system in this village, so the agricultural income here was never high. When Taiwan started to industrialize in the 1970s, a large number of youngsters moved to cities in search of jobs. This is why I follow them to the cities. So when I came to, when I started fieldwork there, I have already found that, all the younger generation, all the people whose age is from 20 to 50 have already disappeared. So I only saw people who are, below age 20 and, older than 50s. So at the same time, so when I was doing fieldwork there, I did fieldwork both in the countryside and in the city too. So many of the villagers moved to the city of Bade in Taoyuan County. So this is the Taoyuan County, which is just a bit south of Taipei City. And they moved to this place. It's called Bade city, Bade Shi, but it was just very it used to be just a very small place in this area. Before it was just farming land. So after 1980s, it started to become more migrants came to this place, and nowadays it was full of it has already turned into city, but all kinds of migrants live in this place. So how did the people of Wanyan village come to this, come to this place? The story starts with the spirit medium's uncle. He told me when I was young, I traveled all over Taiwan, including Kaohsiung and Pingtung. Once in Hengchun, I met a friend working at a textile factory in Tainan, who told me that a textile mill in Taoyuan had an opening for electrician. This is what brought me here in 1970s. Chain migration. Shortly after he arrived in Taoyuan, he brought his brothers, nephews, and nieces, distant relatives, neighbors, and many others from Wanyan village to Bade. I think this is very popular among the Han Chinese society. I think in China too, right? When that they were once they settle down in the cities, they will keep on bringing their fellow villagers of to the city, or their relatives to the city. And then these people in turn brought many more their relatives to Taoyuan. Precarious work condition. Some of the migrants work in factories. Some are contract laborers. They face many kinds of dangers in their jobs, as well as insecurity in the cities. For example, when I was doing fieldwork around 2014, I saw Li Jingwen fall of the scaffolding when he was tiling a building. He limped for a long time after the fall. In the early days, Gao Senming, who is the spirit medium I will mention many times now, was also injured while operating power tools on his interior refurbishing job. 3 of his fingers were cut off by a chainsaw. After he was lucky enough, although he was lucky enough to be quickly taken to the hospital, where his fingers were reattached, to this day, they still noticeably curve outwards. As for the factory work, on the surface, it may appear to be more stable. In reality, the workers in the past faced problems of adverse working environments, long working hours, and insecure jobs. Under the current conditions of neoliberalism, it's even easier for factory owners to move across borders without restrictions from national governments. Workers are increasingly faced with dangers that employers could disappear anytime, leaving them without any income. The difficulties faced by migrant workers from the village of Wanyan echo David Harvey's observation in his book, A Brief History of Neoliberalism. I quote, "So how then do disposable workers survive both socially and effectively in a world of flexible labor markets and short-term contracts, chronic job insecurities, lost social protections, and often debilitating labor among the wreckage of collective institutions that once gave them a modicum of dignity and support," end quote. Harvey predicts that as neoliberalism threatens to change the labor force and the structure of social relationships, other social forms such as non-government organization, secular cults, and religious sects will arise to fill the void. These low-level institutional forms will continue to proliferate as ways of reconstructing damaged social network. In light of Harvey's predictions about laborers' reaction to the threat of neoliberalism, the focus of the talk today will turn to discuss how the establishment of an urban shrine and the selection of a spirit medium reshape the migrants' relations and help them to adapt to the urban environment. I will also investigate how the religious power is reconfigured in cities. When the Wanyan migrants arrived in Taoyuan, they initially still turned to their hometown deities for help when they face irresolvable misfortunes or illness. Some of them would phone their parents in their home village and ask them to consult local spirit mediums. But the answers they got from the home spirits were not really useful in their new urban context. On the other hand, whenever they sought help from temples in the city, they were treated as outsiders, negligently and without due care. The decision of the migrants to invite branch statues of Wanyan deities to come to Bada city was directly related to this. The migrants thought that if their home deities could permanently come to the city to protect them, they would no longer have to keep running for help to other temples or shrines whenever any misfortune befell them, and always be treated badly there. That would greatly help them to settle down in Taoyuan and increase their sense of security. So the branch statues were invited to Bada, and the Jingming Shrine, Jingming Gong, were set up in 1997 in the spirit medium's house. So this is the house, so you can see this, this is the house of the spirit mediums. So you can see he just set up the shrine in front of his house. So this is the dragon pole, standing in front of his house. And then he also invites the spirits soldiers, Wu Ying Bing Jiang, to the city. So you see the 5 sticks of incenses standing here. And so in the city landscape, they can't really set up the camps that they used to do in the village. So they call all the soldiers back to his shrine. So every month, later on I will talk about the monthly worship. They will get together to worship the spirit soldiers and thank for their protection. So this is the monthly worship. All the migrants gather together monthly to worship the deities and spirit soldiers. It's called Kaojun. As you can see from this photo, each basket represents a house. So this is the major baskets, but they are more outside of the shrine, outside of the house. In chapter 4, I focus on discussing how the statues, communal religious practices, and the spirit medium reshaped the rural migrants living at the margins of the city into a shrine family, 神坛大家庭. Their relations become solid and thicker than blood. 比兄弟姐妹还要亲. This is the term they use. They told me. They say, oh, our relationship. 我们比兄弟姐妹还要亲. So okay, so this was especially true of a group of 8 core member families. I would talk about these 8 member families afterwards. To understand how it happened, I will start to talking about the ways by which humans communicate with deities. In Chinese popular religion, how do people communicate with deities? There are 4 main methods. The first one is dropping divination blocks. In Mandarin, it's called 直交, but in Taiwan, they always say 保龟. It's just, if you come to Taiwan and say 保龟, everybody knows, just a way of communicate with God, just like this woman is doing now in this photo. So people can interpret the divine will by dropping and observing the results on the blocks. So when 2 crescent-shaped pieces of wood with one side flat and the other side rounded fall on the ground, people may get the following answers: no, laughing, or yes. I guess you know this, so I won't bother, I won't explain further. And the second one is drawing divination blocks to get written answers. 抽签. So the first one is reading the shape, but the second one is reading the divine will through written words. So you see, the divine will is written in points, in words. So this is different. And the third one, drawing divination blocks to get written points. Sorry, using the armrest of the divination chair, 手教, to write the divine messages. I believe Professor Palmer has seen that when he visited Taiwan. This is very popular now in Taiwan, that 2 men will carry these, 手教, and then just, one of the armrest will write things on the sand, So they would put some incense powder on the table. So they will use the armrest to write the words on the incense powder to tell the divine will. The fourth way is to communicate through spirit medium verbally. So this is again important, and different through languages. Right. So in the past, having a spirit medium was considered the ideal way. I heard them talking about this a lot. They said, oh, it's if we could have a spirit medium, that would be the best for us. Why? Because they can immediately, get the answer or ask the questions. They don't have to guess, right? So they said, the exchange is very direct, and it's through language, by language and human body. So so this is in the past was considered the best, but this is not to deny that nowadays many people do not trust the spirit mediums because some of them are corrupt or suborned by commercial or political interests. To help us understand the differences between religion in the countryside and the city, and particularly the spirit medium's novel reconfiguration of traditional consultation methods, I would like to explain how the mediums work in the rural area and later contrast it with the methods in urban shrines. The spirit medium first is the deity personified. The spirit medium in Hokkien is called the golden son of the deity, 金子, 神明, or they would say, oh, 神明的金子. His body can be entered by the deity to transmit the divine will Through the medium, an omnipresent deity is able to come into the local context and directly interact with devotees. Second, in the rural area, so this is the place in Wanyan, I saw, this spirit medium was selected publicly. So in the initiation ceremony, the newly selected medium must learn how to commend the spirit soldiers of the 5 spirit camps. Cao Wu Ying, as I said, he has to know how to commend them. So he uses the blood from his forehead. So you can see the old shaman here was teaching the new shaman to use the sword of the Big Dipper, Qi Xing Jian, to get blood, to get blood from his forehead, to stand on the sword. So then he will use the sword to command the soldiers afterwards. So in the initiation ceremony, this is very important. So you see all the people, all the men in the country, in this village came to watch whether he learns it or not. How do the spirit mediums receive the divine messages? A senior medium interpreter gave me a very detailed explanation. I quote, the deity has neither form nor image and thus cannot speak. So they said, oh, he has no form, so how can he speak, right? So this deity, either he or she, has to borrow humans' mind, 借人的窍, to communicate by cosmic resonance, 感应, right? 感应人. The deity creates visions, 化解, because he can't speak, right? So he creates visions for the spirit medium when he's asleep. The medium must use cleverness or intelligence to understand their meaning, 他的巧智, to understand what he means. The visions are sometimes difficult to understand, and hence the medium relies on his power of comprehension, 悟力. So not every spirit medium can tell what the divine what the god or goddess means. So he has to learn and practice a lot, and also learn from the old spirit mediums, and even sometimes he has to consult the medium interpreter to know, oh, what does that vision mean, and all kinds of visions, right? The god may give him different kinds of visions, so he has to learn how to interpret them. So usually it will takes days, sometimes 1 week, to get the whole message, and to be able to interpret them. At the same time, the medium must be very familiar with the local context. For example, the consulting family's kinship and marriage relations, and the layout of their house and the tombs, So he has to be familiar with the social context to know what's the reason, to properly combine with the visions and come up with the specific causes of illness or misfortune in that family. For example, has any son passed away before getting married, or any daughter just got ill, and died before she got married, something like that. So he could relate the social issues to the visions that he had. So we can see in the countryside, the power of the medium is intricately bound up with the local social network and the village space. In cities, things are different. A migrant leader said to me, he said, oh, when we first moved here and faced problems, we called the village to consult elders, but we gradually found that they cannot resolve our difficulties here. In Bada, things are different. So the spirit medium, Gao Senming, elaborated this. He said, we are a new generation, we need new thoughts. 我们是新的世代，我们需要新的思考. We can't be doing the same thing, like what the elders did in the village. So what new religious practices were invented? In Bada, two methods of communicating with deities are combined. Gao Senming himself started to use divination blocks to obtain divine messages. You can see the photo here. So this is the divination blocks, and this is Gao Senming. So he's combining divination blocks and he himself as a spirit medium to get the answers. So this is an important combination happening in the city. A more direct and immediate connection with the deity. Gao Senming told me that he recites scripture and meditates for 30 minutes every morning. He said, when I recite, the deity's thoughts gradually seep into my mind. When I meditate, the deity gives me inspiration. After meditating, I immediately drop the divination blocks. The deity's thoughts then surge forth from my mouth. So he does not need dreams anymore. At this point, an important change becomes evident. It is direct inspiration from the deity who flows out from Gao Senming's mouth. He no longer relies, as spirit mediums do in villages, on his intellect and comprehension to fathom the divine will. This new type of communication also implies an intimate bond between the medium and the deity. Gao Senming said, before dropping the divination blocks, I tell the deity what I think, and I make suggestions. The deity and I have an implicit mutual understanding. So he said, 我们有默契. We have, that's how I translate into the deity and I have an implicit mutual understanding. So we can say this way of communication is no longer as bureaucratic as Arthur Wolf claimed in 1974, but reflects Taiwan's democratic development since 1990s, because you can see the relationship between the spirit medium and the deity is very equal. He can make suggestions. He has he shares some understanding with the deity. So he could make suggestions. He always asking the deity, can we do this? Can we do that? Or can you change, to adjust our life rhythm, daily rhythm, something like this. So we see a new kind of subjectivity has arisen. In other words, by inventing a different way of using divination blocks, the urban medium can express his own will as well as incorporate the expectations of the devotees. In this way, he has turned from being a spokesman, 代言人, of the deity in the village into an organizer of knowledge, 知识的组织者, who reaggregates traditional and modern knowledge in an urban setting. By using this new divination method, the medium's imagination could respond to contemporary conditions, refabricating with new possibilities and making religion in the city more flexible to the needs of the modern day. Let us look at how he applies this method to the core members of the shrines. Gao Senming explained to me, he said, when I use divination blocks to consult the deity, if a negative answer occurs continually, if he keeps on getting no from the deity, it's possible that the deity has something to say, something special to transmit. In this situation, he said, I will stop and ask the deity whether he has something to say. Then he said, first, I will ask, is it related to the public or private? Public matters have to do with the shrine. But if it's private, then I ask, does it have to do with me or my family? And if the deity says no, then he will check the deity about each of the 8 household members one by one. starting with the head of the family and then including every family member. Gao Fengxi, a member of one of the 8 households, adds, he told me, our deity transmits signs to the spirit medium about us even before we consult them. He always shows his deep concern for the 8 households. This illustrates how the spirit medium used the divination blocks to strengthen and deepen the connections between the 8 families and Jining Shrine. The god's advice relates to all aspects of life, including family, education, and career matters. In this way, all the members of the families have become tightly bound to the shrine. For example, as previously mentioned, Li Jingwen had once fallen from scaffolding. Even before this accident, he had been afflicted for a long time with the pain in his leg, about which he often came to the shrine to consult Gao Senming. One day before the accident, Gao Senming learned from the divination blocks that something bad was about to happen to Li Jingwen the next day, and warned him not to go to work. However, as his team was in a hurry to finish the construction project, Li already told the foreman that he would work. So although he had a nervous presentiment about that day, he could not back off going to work. When the accident happened, everyone felt it to be a miracle. The incident further confirmed to them the deity's solicitude toward every member of the 8 families. We can say that the invented consultation method becomes the way that the deity, spirit medium, and the 4 shrine members express their deep affection toward each other. The 8 families in this process have gradually transformed into a novel type of shrine family, 神坛大家庭. Heart-to-heart connection. The divination method of Gao Senming, however, is not a deviant fabrication from tradition. I was very interested about that. So that's why I went back to Wanyan village and asked these elders, whether this is a weird or sort of new way of communication. Especially, I consulted almost every senior medium interpreters in Wanyan village. Their answers or their replies to me are more or less the same. And one of them explained it the best. He said, this is generally used as a supplementary to vision comprehension. This is basically a supplementary behavior. So it's called heart-to-heart connection, 心应心. Very interesting. I never heard about that, but every spirit medium interpreter more or less says the same thing. So this more immediate and direct form of communication, which is considered additional or supplementary in the countryside, has now developed and become the medium's primary means of tackling unpredictable situation in the city. So before, in the countryside, things are more much more smooth. So there's not so many unpredictable things in the countryside. But now in the city, things are so difficult to predict, and as in a way so unpredictable. So now this kind of communication becomes important, or even the major means of communicating with the deity. Let's now turn to how the new invented method of consultation can cope with the faster rhythms of urban life. Using divination blocks to consult the deity allows the spirit medium to quickly discover the divine will. This also helps to keep up with the rapid pace of urban life. The urban people nowadays don't have as much time to give the consultations as they did in the village. With the innovation in consultation, the media now can provide more immediate help, as well as serve more people in the cities. In 1 year, it usually will take 1 or 2 weeks to complete a single consultation. In comparison, when I did my fieldwork in 2012 in Bali, the city, resolving more than 20 patients' problems per day was very normal in Jiming Shrine. So this is Gao Senming's diary on November 27th, 2011, when before I wrote this book. It shows around 20 people here, November, okay, see here, date, November 27th. Came to consult him, and so he wrote down their names, address, and their telephone number. So if he complete each case, he will tick, something here to show, I have already resolved this. So see, 20 cases here. Nowadays, Gao Senming even starts to use the smartphone app, Line, which is very popular, just like WeChat in China, to contact his followers. In this way, he could resolve as many as 100 cases per day. So this line, he set up his account number, ID here, Dr. God, right? So that's his birthday. So he set up this and told his followers, now you don't even have to come to the shrine. You could just line me. I can do the divination. I can just consult the God for you. So he could resolve as many as 100 cases per day. But this is another story which I don't have time to talk about today. I published a paper about this in this collection. That's this is the earlier symposium or collective papers I published in 2018. So I wrote a paper here, crossing the line, 跨越界限, light and digital religion in the 21st century. Now, let's also look at the unique procedure of using divination blocks invented by Gao Senming. When dropping divination blocks, he starts with a question regarding the source of misfortunes. He asks, has the patient encountered polluted air created by a funeral, 丧气, or he asks, has this patient encountered lonely and wild ghosts on the road, 无主孤魂, or faithful stars like tigers or dogs, those fierce tigers, 天狗星, or 白虎星, these faithful stars. He asks patiently again and again, about each reason in turn. So you see here, the divination blocks is in his palm, and you look at his diary. He will write down the person's name who consults him, and then he kneels down and then start to do a consultation and ask one reason. If it's not 丧气, then is it because of the wandering ghost? And if it's not a wandering ghost, is it because of the 天狗星 or 白虎星? He asks one by one. If he still cannot get the answer, then he turns to the traditional causes of trouble, such as feng shui or ancestral problems, these very traditional reasons to explain the illness. This shows that the traditional causes of illness or misfortune, which are related to social relations in classical ethnographies, such as these very prestigious scholars, Emily Ahern, David Jordan, or Steve Sangren, Rob Weller or Arthur Wolf, they also recorded the same thing, the consultation issues and the cause of illnesses. Usually it's related to feng shui or, social relations, but these causes now receive less priority in cities. We may wonder why. Why is it so? Nowadays, the adherents desiring consultation in the city could come from anywhere. They are spatially dispersed. Attributing the causes of illness to unpredictable factors help the spirit medium to resolve the jeopardy of not intimately knowing the adherents' social networks. After becoming disembedded from the social network and the connections to a specific location, the spirit medium has created a more spacious scale for his temple to accommodate devotees from all over Taiwan and beyond. So it means that now people who come to consult, or these migrants who live around Taoyuan, they come from all over Taiwan and sometimes even from other countries. I saw some cases which are cases from Japan and sometimes from United States, although not really many, just one, a few cases. So that's why he feels now if this god or the deity is only locally, is a local deity in Taoyuan, it's not enough to accommodate so many people from the island or all over the world. So that's why he starts to broaden out. He will go to Tiantan or Tiantan in Tainan City or Sanqing Temple in Yilan to draw their power in back to Taoyuan, to his shrine. So now he regularly visits these temples. Every month he goes to these temples. Finally, how about the lay urbanites? How do they see their relations with the deities? We can approach this question by looking at their choice of shrines for consultation. After interviewing a few people who occasionally visit the shrine, I found it's very difficult for them to express the reason they go to consult the shrine. Most of their responses at the beginning were very similar. That is, 有效. They will say, oh, 因为有效, that's why I come here, or, you will never hear that, oh, 没有效, then people still come. They always try to persuade me, oh, the God here is 很有效力. After I spent more time with them, they started to be more voluble. They would start to speak more. They would say, oh, I can sense a resonance, 感应 with the deity. 我跟神明有感应. Or I have a cosmic link. 我跟他有缘分. I have a cosmic link with the deity. The concept of 缘分 has been frequently raised in recent literature too. For example, in China, 缘分 has become the way by which people explain their unusual encounters in life in the modern city. For example, Shenzhen, this research is done by Fan Lizhu and Whitehead. In Taiwan, the master of an influential Buddhist sect, Tzu Ji, also says that there is a predestined bond between the followers and her. 我跟我的信徒有缘分. She says something like that. In some, as popular religions, traditional connections with place and social networks has become greatly loosened in modern urban settings. 缘分, something over which people have no control, and which they are unable to explain becomes the way people explain their cosmic resonance and rapport with a certain deity. 缘分 and 感应, the psychological link and rapport with the deity have become more and more important in the cities. Conclusion. In previous studies on urban religion, phrases such as individualistic trend and pursuing personal freedom are very often applied to describe the urban religious development. These views based on free choice are inevitably the influences of sociologists. For example, Peter Berger in his very famous book, The Sacred Canopy, or Thomas Luckman, The Invisible Religion. What does this ethnographical case in Taiwan push us to think? We can see that between the medium and the deity, a relation based on heart-to-heart connection has arisen. It is a more direct and immediate correspondence than before. Its speed may reflect the fast pace of our life in contemporary society, but I think it's more than that. The reason is that this heart-to-heart connection even extends to every individual's life within the 8 core family members. Through the spirit mediums and his divination blocks, the 8 families have forged intimate bonds. A shrine family has thus emerged. The relations between each other, after sharing heart lives in cities for years, have become very close and thus thicker than blood. As for lay adherents and the deity, it is 缘分 which binds them together. Yet 缘分 is not a free choice, but a cosmic link, enabling the devotees to sense the deity and producing a psychological and emotional rapport between them. Thus, I consider neither individualistic trend nor free choice as sufficient to explain urban religious phenomena. It's rather a new kind of kinship intimacy and affect in urban religion, which we need to further explore in the future. Thank you.